Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story, which is titled My 33 Female, Boyfriend 32 Male of 4.5 years seems to not care about my pleasure when intimate. My boyfriend 32 male and I 33 female have been together for 4.5 years. He's been my only intimate partner and he was the person I thought I was going to marry. But things have been rocky lately. We're trying to work through those issues, but there is one issue that I don't know if I can work through, and that has to do with intimacy. Ever since we were first intimate, he does not seem to prioritize my pleasure during the act. For the first little while, it was a lot of exploration and thought that maybe he needed time to discover what works for me, but I noticed that there were no attempts being made. I then decided to have a conversation with him about it, when he seemed to understand and agree that it was important that we both enjoy the act. The next time the situation presented itself, he did not attempt again. I had a conversation about it with him again and he apologized and said he would try again. This continued to happen and I continued to stay and wait. In the 4.5 years we were together, we have been intimate for 4 years, and I can count on one hand the times he has tried but given up. I first thought it was me and that I was the problem. So I went to therapy and spoke to a therapist about this. She asked me if I've been able to in the past, and I told her I have. She asked me if I have communicated with my partner about what works for me and what does not, before the act and during, and I have too. She told me that I am not the problem, and it seems that my partner is just not interested in equality in that realm of the relationship, and that it likely extends beyond that too. I thought maybe just some one-on-one time away would help. So I have booked countless Airbnbs for us, cottage getaways, city staycations, you name it. But nothing has been enough for him to prioritize me in that sense. I had a final conversation about this, and he promised that from then on, that would be his priority. A few days ago, he had 2 opportunities, but he did not try. Today, he called me saying he would like to dedicate some time to just making sure that I was pleasured this week. I told him that I decided that I don't want to be intimate with him any longer, and then he proceeded to fight with me on the phone. I politely told him I was not interested in fighting and hung up. Are there male partners out there like this? Have I exhausted everything? Am I being just plain stupid? OP continued to make a couple of other posts. The first one was titled, but we don't have the body of the story, but it was titled, My Boyfriend's 33 Male Birthday is Coming Up. Watch suggestions under or around 500 CAD. And then post another post which says, Boyfriend 32 Male did not celebrate my 33 female birthday this year, plus no gift or gestures. His birthday is coming up. What do I do? And continue saying, boyfriend 32 male and I 33 female got into a big argument a few days before my birthday, about a month ago, and he did not do anything to celebrate my birthday. It's been a month since my birthday, and while the argument was resolved, he did not offer to do anything to celebrate my birthday or get me a present during this time. His birthday is coming up this weekend, and I always go above and beyond for his birthday each year. Given he did not celebrate mine, how should I approach this? There was some comments that OP replied to. One comment said, I'll probably just do what you normally do. Going tit for tat seems unhealthy. OP says, I agree, but it's been like this on numerous occasions and that's where my issue is. It happened last year too, so I'm not really sure how to approach this now. It's kind of always me doing much more than he does on all occasions. Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries. I've spoken to him about it, but it does not ever translate into actual changes. And at this point, I'm also a bit exhausted and I feel stupid for asking him to want to do things for me. The same commenter replies to OP and says, well, if he doesn't listen or adapt to meet your needs, then maybe this should be your last holiday with him. OP responds to that and says, he makes it out that I ask too much for things when I try to explain my feelings to him. He makes it out such that I don't have a right to feel the way I do. I'll give you an example. Last night we were supposed to meet up in the evening. His friends came by to see him and he told me about them but never brought up cancelling our plans or rescheduling. He pretended like our plans did not exist. When I was a bit upset about it and told him that it would have been nice if he has at least spoken to me about it and rescheduled, he got mad at me. This morning, he called and yelled at me for ruining his evening with his friends because he could not enjoy it to the full extent after our convo. I'm really not sure how to explain things to him in a way that makes sense to him. That I have feelings too. It never goes over well when I try. Salty Chica says, I looked at your post history. This selfish arsehole doesn't give a fuck. Sounds like he's picking fights timed conveniently to avoid buying you anything and then making it up in time to cash in. Don't spend any more time or money on this creep. Lose 200 pounds of dead weight and be so much happier and more peaceful. You're worth so much more than what you're settling for. OP says I've always given him the benefit of the doubt and perhaps too many chances to make things better after he's hurt me again and again. He usually blames me for starting arguments because I bring up things that he may say or do that bother me, and I approach him for a discussion. For example, he'll yell at me and I will ask him not to. His response will be, you made me get to this point and now you're asking me to be respectful. He'll usually then follow up with an apology later. Along the same vein, the argument before my birthday was around why I brought up a conversation we were supposed to have about a lie he had told me that he does not want to address. As I typed this all out, I realized how stupid I am being by having stayed. I asked him today after I made this post about why I'm not a priority to him, and I did, as some suggest, bring up my birthday. I asked him why things that are important in my life are not important to him, and unfortunately, he was pin drop silent. The wonderful community here has reminded me that I do deserve more. And for me, I think the comments pretty much just hit the nail on the head. All the way through, you've explained in different ways that he has not prioritized you in your relationship at all. And the simple question is do you want this for yourself? It doesn't seem like he's going to change or wants to change. He changes for like small moments when it seems to benefit him and then goes back to how he was. So do you want that in your life? You've already pretty much said in the comments that they've opened your eyes to this. So hopefully you're going to make the right choice in this update for you anyway. So OP did update the post and says, firstly, and most importantly, thank you everyone for the love and advice on the original post. I've taken most of it to heart and I will do better by myself and you. Boyfriend 32 male called just now after not having spoken or reached out in about 48 hours. Also, it's his birthday this weekend. And he told me, girlfriend 33 female, in a very somber voice, that he missed me so very much and that he was incredibly sad that we haven't spoken in a couple of days. I could hear he was driving and I was on his car's Bluetooth. I asked him where he was headed to and without pause, he told me that he was on his way to a last-minute party he invited at his friend's house, which is about 1.5 hours away. But he quickly followed up with, it's just a distraction because I miss you and I love you so much. I asked him if he was truly missing me and wanted to work things out, as he said on the phone, and had an evening free. How is it that he didn't consider reaching out to spend some time together to discuss things? It's not like we had discussed not seeing each other. The last time we spoke, I asked him why things that were important to me were not to him, and he was silent. And I didn't hear from him again. Of note, I have enough respect for him that I decided if a breakup was right, which is likely, I would have had that conversation in person, but that has not happened in 40 hours since we last spoke. He had no response, and then after a pause, he asked if I had some time tomorrow to sit down and talk instead. Given he was looking forward to the party now, I started crying because it made me incredibly sad to realize this was just a game to him. All talk, completely disingenuous, no heart. This is 4.5 years together. I was an idiot, but what a guy. And the only frustrating thing about this, there was no actual mention of a breakup. It does seem like it's going to go down that way, and I really hope it is for OP's sake. You know, like she just said, instead of going to make up and truly missing him and wanting to work things out, he's gone to a party an hour and a half away. Guy doesn't give a shit. He hasn't given a shit any of the way through this post. You've prioritized him in so many different ways and he's just given you nothing back. Why'd you want this? I hope those get out of it because they truly just deserve better. But what do you guys make of this situation? How long would you have put up with that? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story does come on an update and says, I, 29 male, broke my wife's 28 female's heart. How do I save my marriage? My wife and I have been married for 4 years and together for 6. I love her deeply. However, recently I've developed an infatuation for a woman I work with. I did not cheat and have a strictly work relationship with her. I recognized my feelings as a mere crush but still felt guilty and needed to talk about it. About 2 months ago, I posted on a forum, not Reddit, about this woman and found sympathy. It helped me understand how crushes in a long-term relationship work. A month ago, I came home to my wife, having printed my post. She confronted me and I was taken by surprise. I didn't really know how to explain myself. I couldn't lie either, so I just apologized to her. She read my post while crying. I cannot post it entirely here, but basically I said she was a breath of fresh air, the reason I'm happy to go to work. I wish I could hold her in my arms and know how she smells. I often dream of her. Sometimes I lie down and imagine her in front of me. These were things I was thinking but couldn't say aloud. They were things that could have been written in a diary. They were private thoughts and I never imagined my wife would read them. In the end, it was just a fantasy. Ever since that day, my wife has barely spoken to me. She refuses to discuss it and won't look at me in the eye the rare time she addresses me. She moved into our guest room. She told me she was getting ready to divorce and would file when she has enough money, and that I shouldn't hope, that I am free to pursue that woman. I understand why she is hurt, but it is just an infatuation. It is not comparable to the love and history I have for her. How can I get through to her? She told me she never had feelings for another man and that I betrayed her. She won't stay married to a man who yearns for another woman. I told her I would change jobs, but she just said I'll still dream of her. She's completely closed off. What can I do? I apologize for errors. I'm stressed and not a native English speaker. Ed MC says, what have you done about changing your job or workplace? What options have you got for couples counseling? For me, this boils down to how hard you want to fight for your marriage. Continuing to go to the place of work when the fantasy woman also works is sending a message to your wife. From the counseling point of view, it obviously helps that you actually took no action. But those must have been some incredible hurtful things to read as your spouse. I appreciate it would be hard to convince her to attend with you, but at this stage you have nothing to lose. If she does go, expect to sit and be quiet while hearing her resentment. It won't be pleasant. Good luck. Winston Dresden says, in quotes, just an infatuation, then says, you not only had an inappropriate crush on a co-worker, you memorialized it on some forum in basically softcore romance novel style description and left access to it on your computer for your wife to find. Your wife is very hurt. You can keep telling her you love her and the other woman means nothing. You were just being self-indulgent and you are so sorry. If the wife doesn't soften in a few weeks, then your marriage is over. Alora says, if I were your wife, I'd be devastated too. Everyone has the right to put their hands up at a certain point and say, I do not want this relationship anymore. Hearing you say, and quotes, a breath of fresh air, the reason I'm happy to go to work. I wish I could hold her in my arms and know how she smells. I often dream of her. Sometimes I lay down and imagine her in front of me, and continues, was reason enough for her. To be fair, if my partner had written that about another woman, that would be my breaking point as well. Your wife has already given you an answer. She doesn't want to stay with you, and I don't blame her. You don't get to decide how hurt she is, and I'm sure there are women who could bounce back from this. However, your wife isn't one of them, and you should respect her choice. A user says, how was your relationship before this went down? Because seeing this, and then quotes what he written in that forum again, and says, would crush anybody. Even more so if you've never expressed those kinds of feelings to your wife. Have you ever told her she was your breath of fresh air, the reason why you're happy to go home, and that you think of her when you're apart? It's one thing to know that you're the faithful and dependable spouse with lots of history. It's another to be the fire that gets you going, and to her, that position is filled. The silver lining here is that she's getting ready to divorce, which means there's time to fix this. Take the initiative and book a marriage counselor and look for a new job. If you were apathetic in your relationship before, now is the time to change that. And one more comment from a user who first quotes saying it's just an infatuation, then goes on to say, well, for starters, if you want to try and save the marriage, stop minimizing what you did. Just an infatuation is perking up a bit when the cute coworker stops by to discuss the project you're working on, and then reminding yourself that it's been a while since you and the wife had date night and you should fix that. You've reached the point where you're rhapsodizing the total strangers about the object of your affection, because nothing on the internet can ever be considered private. You have a problem, And the people you should really be talking about it to are a counselor or your wife. It might be too late for the latter, but if you go talk to the former now, maybe you can at least learn where to set appropriate boundaries on this kind of thing in the future. So OP does update the post, and they said, I'd forgotten about this post and I'm back to update, so maybe seeing my stupidity could prevent someone else from making the same mistakes. I cringe when I read today what I wrote months ago, and it seems ridiculous to me that I could have felt this way about another woman. I wrote that I would imagine my former coworker while lying in bed, but in the end, when my wife stopped acknowledging my existence, waking up without seeing her face was just absolute torture. I really took all I had for granted until I almost lost it. So I took some of the advices and decided to court my wife again the hardest I could. Of course, the first step was looking for another job, and it took me a month, but I managed to find a similar position in another enterprise. I did what was suggested of taking every other chore, and she stopped ignoring me, but would simply stare at me with some kind of hostility and go on with her life. I tried flowers, but she would leave them to die. My wife's dominant love language is physical, but I wouldn't dare try touching her, so I went for telling her. I somehow realized it was really the content of what I wrote about the other woman, which obviously when you are deep in a crush is amplified. That really hurt her. I tried engaging her in conversation so we could talk about what was happening to us, but more importantly what I did to her, but she remained closed off. I started writing her letters and would leave them under a pillow. At first I apologized for everything, for writing the post, for not putting an end to the crush faster, for making her feel like another woman could hold a higher place of importance to me, and for not taking the initiative to change jobs earlier. For making her life hard by creating the situation which ended in her sleeping in the guest room of her own house. For making her cry and causing stress to her. Then I wrote her love letters telling her how much I loved her, how the crush couldn't compare to the deep love I have for her. I was chewed for saying I loved her because of our history in my last post, but I was misunderstood. I meant that the love I have for her has gotten stronger with time. 5 years ago, I loved her, but wouldn't have given her one of my organs if she needed, for example, while now I would without hesitation. Our history is what caused the attachment to grow stronger, therefore no random crush could override that. I was all in front of my crush and wrote sappy things about her in the end. I was awed in front of my crush and wrote sappy things about her, but in the end, I do not know this woman on a personal level, while I have seen the worst of my wife and the love remains. I told her how beautiful she was and how impressed and proud I was with her development as a person since we have met, how grateful I was for her presence in my life and every single thing I was thankful for that she did and enhanced my life, how much I needed her and missed her telling me how her day went. Laugh at my bad jokes and basically just missed hearing the sound of her voice. This is a small sample, but it must have taken a good 3 weeks of daily letters until she answered me back. She answered with a letter of her own, telling me how much I have hurt her with my crush, how I made her feel invisible next to that woman, how I never told her such loving words until the letters, how much she hated me and how much she loved me and missed me too. The letter allowed me to feel her vulnerability. After reading it, I cried and went to see her. We locked eyes. She cried and we held each other for a long time. She started talking to me again and then softened. Honestly, the possibility of the marriage ending just like that scared the both of us. As of today, we are, to my surprise, mostly back to normal, and actually I feel closer to her. We continued with letters which have helped increase our emotional intimacy. I make an effort to tell and show her my love. I'm very grateful that she has given me a second chance, and even more so that she has decided to put the crush behind us. We had maybe 2 fights since, but she hasn't brought it up and doesn't punish me. It really wasn't the crush on itself, but how I went about it and the lack of affection from my part in comparison. Maybe I'm being optimistic here, but I truly think we are going to get through this. We will be going to couples counseling after our vacation, just to make sure things are really settled between us. And the comments below this one was a mixed bag. Some people saying, just glad that you got another chance, make it count. Other people saying that there was no way that they would have been able to move past this. And other people saying keep writing those letters and save the letters just to look at if you ever have a fight or whatever, to remind yourself of what happened in your past. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.